Welcome to the In Early podcast, where I speak to those at the forefront of the digital assets and technology sectors, telling real-life stories, considering the growth and growing pains of the industry, and exploring how blockchain and other technology has made an impact on people's lives. My name is Matt Green, and I head up blockchain, digital assets, and technology disputes at law firm Lawrence Stevens. This episode features Marco Morazzoni, who is the founder and CEO of Semoto, a marketplace for service providers in blockchain, from natives, developers and tokenization experts to more traditional services like law, insurance, banking and consulting, looking to service this nascent industry. Previously a sales director at Elliptic and with experience at Britannia Global Markets, IBP Markets and Valbury Capital, Marco has been working in the blockchain technology industry for a number of years, setting up Semoto to ensure the industry's growth is facilitated by legitimate and proven experts. Marco, welcome. Thanks for coming down.
Hey, Matt. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's get straight into it. So I always ask people how they got into the world of blockchain and digital assets. And from a review of your LinkedIn, which is always a good place to start, your first interaction was at Valbury Capital. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, what you did at Valbury, and what, for the layperson like me, what introduced cryptocurrencies to the company via the first Bitcoin-listed futures actually means?
Absolutely. So my journey started in 2017, pretty much. Valbury was an institutional brokerage house. By background, I'm a broker, particularly in derivatives. At Valbury, I was managing the multi-product desk. So I was managing a team of brokers executing for institutional players like banks, funds, and family offices. One day, a client simply phoned in asking, I heard about this Bitcoin thing. Can I execute it?
Do you remember what year it was roughly?
That was 2016 and we were nowhere ready to do anything. Yeah. But in 2017, if I remember correctly, was towards the end of the year, is when CME launched the first listed contract on a listed exchange in the form of a future contract on Bitcoin. So that was the first way for truly institutional player to interact with Bitcoin. So I simply raised my hands and said, I know a couple of things about the product, give me a chance, I will execute. Yeah. And then is when truly I fell into the rabbit hole of cryptos, starting executing for clients, educate myself, and that was the beginning of my journey.
So it was an opportunity that arose, and then from there you were seen maybe in your business as the expert, right? And I think that's how a lot of people get into it.
In a way, yes. I mean, and it's not such a dissimilar story from a lot of people in TradeFi. They fall in love with the product, with the technology, and they learn throughout the journey.
And then what expertise did this give you, and why did you feel like this industry or this technology was worth banking on?
So fun enough, the first level of knowledge that I gathered was related to the speculative element of it, how to trade it, how to try and recognize some patterns or make any sense out of the price movement. But I quickly discovered that was the part that fascinates me the least. I really loved the technology behind. I really loved what the community was trying to build with it. So that is what actually took my journey to the next stage.
Because you were at Britannia.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Britannia, great place for me because it was a full service provider in finance. The core was still brokerage, but they own offshore banks. They own the asset management arm. So that place truly gave me a 360 exposure on how to serve clients, how to get business done for them, whatever they needed. And he opened up a lot of opportunities for me in the digital asset space.
So you were at Britannia, it's sort of more finance, as you've said, as was your history at Valbury. Then you moved to Elliptic, which for those who don't know, is a leader in the blockchain analytics field, allowing customers to follow assets across various blockchains and detect illicit behaviors. So can you tell us a little bit about your time there, what you did and the value adds?
So Elliptic, it's, as you said, is one of the market leader, incredible company with a great product. For me personally, it was a bit of a side move because I knew the trading aspect of digital assets, but I felt like I was still out of the community. I wanted to really move fully in blockchain. And I thought to myself, what is going to be the next big thing? What is going to really make the difference in the space? And I thought it was regulation. What Elliptic is doing together with their competitors is really bringing more transparency to the whole space. And for me, it was an incredible experience because providing anti-money laundering services, discussing regulatory requirements, it opened up a portfolio of great contacts and knowledge for myself.
So what were you doing there? It was more AML type stuff. And how does that link in from what you were doing with Valbury and Britannia?
So anybody that works in finance has to understand compliance, has to understand the customer journey into being regulated, into what are the requirements to execute a transaction and trade financial assets. So nothing different from what is happening in digital assets at present. Companies are becoming more sophisticated and they have to understand compliance requirements.
And was that fundamental part of Elliptic's business, right? Because it is sort of identifying illicit behavior. So actually, you were quite important in that business. Can you say that about yourself?
Definitely not. I wish I was, but no, the reality is there is an element of providing you the tool to trace the assets.
Yeah.
So the software element to it. But what these companies are doing to the ecosystem is education. Preparing the regulator on what to expect when players move into that space, to how to put together the whole company infrastructure.
Yeah, because Elliptic's an interesting one because it's essentially a piece of software that people can use to provide analytics on a blockchain. And some of their competitors are software providers that some of the investigators use, right? I use those investigators, they use a Reactor or TRM. And then I know of Elliptic and I know what they do, but they seem to have a very different play in this. It seems to be more AML, knowing what transactions had happened and helping maybe governments or certainly not people like me. It was the other side of the coin. So I was curious as to find out how they stood out in the market. What was your experience of what they did there?
I think that the beauty of Elliptic is that instead of taking a path that is more strictly government or investigation or maybe a smaller transaction, Elliptic has a truly powerful tool that can help from government to big players like, Coinbase and Binance to SME. So it's nicely built, is flexible, and can be adapted to different use cases.
And then you moved on. And you've started, Semoto is yours, isn't it?
Correct.
So it's interesting because I sat down with a friend now in the industry for a long time called Ben Appleby when I first did this podcast, who you obviously know. And he ran the Cake, which was very similar to Semoto. So it's quite a nice thing to start and then start again with, two people who are trying to help the industry by providing specialists. So let's just think about this. What is Semoto in a nutshell? Let's take it step by step.
Absolutely. And shout out to Ben, by the way. Big fan of what he did and great guy. He helped me a lot at the beginning, giving me good advice. What is Semoto? Semoto is a B2B marketplace of vetted individuals, in particular vetted service providers in the blockchain space.
And vetted is a word that you've repeated now. That's the big bit, right? So you have to make sure that they're not just someone who's knocked on your door and said, hey, I'd like to advise. Is it you who has to know them? Are there a team of vetters in place to help? How does it work?
So it's multiple things. At the moment, it's still the beginning of our journey in the space. But we're lucky because between me and my co-founder, we have an extremely solid network of institutional players.
Yeah.
So we're lucky because the people that we have brought in so far, for the majority of them, they tend to be people that we've worked with before, that we've been knowing, that they served our clients previously, so we know their reputation in the space. But
go on, sorry.
No.
I was just thinking, so actually because of your time previously at Valbury, Britannia, and Elliptic, you've got to know some of the trusted players. So it's actually been hopefully easier than it might seem for you to vet those people.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, being a broker in particular, helping the clients in structuring whatever offer they want to put it together, helped me out to such a variety of different players in the industry. So I vetted them throughout a journey that is probably 20 years overall, not just in blockchain, obviously. But that's not sufficient because it will never allow us to scale. So what we do is you can not just simply sign up and launch a profile. In order to get your profile live, we either need to know you, or you need to be introduced by us by a client or an existing service provider. Second of all, we run social media checks. We want to make sure that these people are active in the communities. It can be Telegram, it can be Discord, it can be events like pretty much like me and you
who just
met,
know
right?
each other
Exactly.
through various events.
It's not such a huge industry. You see the people that are truly doing some good for the ecosystem. After social media, we do adverse news check, meaning that if there is something against your name, your company name, we don't let you in. And finally, we request 3 introduction and reviews by existing clients that we can verify.
So actually, it's not a particularly easy thing to get on to Semoto.
No.
It seems like there's quite a lot of work. It's just you managed to short-circuit your own protocols by knowing the right people, right?
It is a bit time-consuming, that part, but it guarantees quality.
So what gap did you see in the market? Because, again, Ben had a really nice website and product. What is it that you've seen that others haven't?
So few people tried something similar and it worked in multiple cases. I think that the difference from what is out there and where I see the gap is that we don't let freelancers into the ecosystem. So again, it's a B2B ecosystem.
Right. Okay. So you have to be, it's not just someone who's gone, I used to work at, say, I don't know, Deloitte, and then I've gone off on my own, and then please put me onto Semoto. They have to be part of a big organization.
Absolutely.
And why have you done that?
Because there are several marketplaces out there for freelancers, from the huge players like Fiverr and Upwork.
Yep.
$1 billion type of companies, but also there are already players in blockchain. That is an industry that is needed, that is booming. I absolutely love it. But my angle is different. If Matt is launching his own blockchain companies, yes, he might need few freelancers here and there to help him. But when you need to succeed, when you want to increase and grow your business, you are going to rely on companies. You need to deal with a law firm, an accounting firm, these type of entities, not freelancers.
I suppose it gives you a little bit more protection, or at least your customers a little bit more protection, right? Because say, for instance, they hire a lawyer that goes a bit rogue, who are you going to pursue? They could just disappear, whilst a law firm has a level of credibility, has its own insurance. I understand the point that you make there. What are the challenges that you wanted to overcome specifically? I mean, that sounds like one of them. Are there any more?
The industry is highly fragmented, and despite we've been in the business for a while, it's still early, right? It's still a young industry. So the main issue on our end, looking from the client perspective, then we can talk about the providers, is how to find reliable people. One of the story, the recurrent story that gave me the idea of creating Semoto was dealing with a lot of startups. And these companies were desperate for help. They were asking us, if you do this, do you also know somebody else that can do something else to help me out? One of the recurrent stories was always, I picked the wrong provider. I wasted 6 months. I wasted 50 grand. My project is done. Those are type of mistakes that kill a startup. And this is my mission, trying to make it easier for them to avoid issues. Deal with reliable people, screen between multiple, select which one is the one suitable for you based on experience, based on location, based on budget, negotiate with multiple, and get a quick and fast deal.
Why were you then exposed to so many startups? Is it because you were looking, or because of the environment you were in at Elliptic or prior?
I would say a bit of both. At Elliptic, I was doing quite a lot of startups as well. And in my previous career, startups were looking for places to invest in Bitcoin. So somehow I came across quite a vast universe of these projects.
So my next question was going to be, how do you screen people before they appear on your website? But you've covered that quite nicely. I don't think we need to cover that again. So I had a dig around on your website to look at some of your values and to figure out what it is that you guys stood for. And one of the quotes, it says, in a world in which complexity seems to be the norm, We go in the other direction by keeping things as simple as they can possibly be. And I had a look at that and I thought, yes, things can be complicated and it is good to break things down into sort of bite-sized chunks. But sometimes problems are quite complicated. How do you marry that up with the statement made?
Absolutely. So it goes back to what we were saying. Let's say you want to buy a car. Actually, better example, let's say that you are going on holiday next week and you need to find an hotel. These days, our generation, we rely more and more on marketplaces. For two reasons. Because we're skeptical, rightfully so we want to compare as many offers as possible. But second of all, we rely on peer-to-peer reviews. We want to see what other people experience has been. I'm sure that if we open your phone right away, you probably go on holiday using a marketplace, you probably order your food over the weekend.
You're on Google Maps all the time, what are the reviews?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the beauty of marketplace. So how that transpires in our goals, we want to guarantee you some level of safety, so we vet those people, but almost as, I like to define it almost as a layer 2, the community can leave a review, so you can see what, you don't have to trust Semoto per se, see what other people that have been through your journey before you are saying of those providers.
So the first level, I guess, is for you to say, well, like, I vetted you or Semoto's vetted you. But actually the better way is the next level, which is, oh, not only do we believe in you as the advisor, but also third parties in our community have done that as
Correct.
well. Right? That's the point.
Correct.
But that doesn't necessarily marry up with the point made, whereas, I mean, how do you, if someone's come to you with a difficult problem, I guess maybe one of the ways in which you deal with that difficult problem, if you're going to create bite-sized chunks, is to maybe pull in a variety of the experts that you got. Have you found that to be useful?
100%. We find, and it's probably a good thing for us, is that a lot of the problems are interconnected. Meaning that if you want to launch a token, writing the tokenomics is the beginning of the journey. You probably want an expert from a legal background to verify if that is a security or a utility. After that, you want to pick a jurisdiction to incorporate that makes sense based on your tokenomics. You want to consider listing. You want to consider a market maker to create liquidity. Or let's look at what you are great at, the asset recovery element. You want to speak with a lawyer with your level of experience, but you also want to start engaging an investigator to try to trace the assets, right? So a lot of this issue, from incorporation to launching a project to facing issues, are interconnected. So having that ecosystem that can help you and from which you can choose, we hope that is going to make life easier for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, is it's not just go and speak to this person, they'll figure the whole thing out for you. There are a lot of different people who can provide solutions to one big problem. So breaking it down is quite important. So the value of Semoto seems to be this tailor-made service. Again, on the website, you say, we understand that not all digital asset projects are equal, which is why we're offering a complete consultancy and advisory services to find the best blockchain service providers for you, help you get the best quotes and connect the dots on your behalf. So on that basis, how much of the subject or how much of a subject matter expert do you or Semoto need to be to ensure you find and understand the issue and find the right experts?
Great question. So let me start saying that marketplaces by definition are slow animals. They take a lot of time to be up and running simply because you have the chicken and egg problem, building supply and demand, and also because you need to generate liquidity. Because of that, we wanted to start having also that element of consulting, because a lot of people might not yet found what they need, or they have more complex questions that they want to address. By no means we claim to be expert of all. We actually try to keep those type of people out of our ecosystem, those consultants they claim to be able to do it all. But because of the background that we have created multiple companies for ourselves, for clients in past, in different jurisdictions. We have that element in our pocket. We have dealt with lawyers for our clients in past. So there are aspects like taxation and legal where obviously we don't give any advice, but we try to assess your needs and we put together a clear roadmap of what you need.
And I guess you may, to some extent, be relying on some of the experts to push you in the right direction, right? So say, for instance, and I'm sure you do, but say, for instance, if someone came to me and they'd lost a lot of, I don't know, just keep it easy, they'd lost a lot of Bitcoin, and I would say, well, okay, well, the first thing you need to do is to go and find out where those assets are. So we need to get a blockchain analytics expert. Now, on the basis that you don't have one, and I'm sure you do, I guess you would ask me to recommend somebody that I know and they would have to be vetted by you? Or would you go, look, Matt's on the site, I guess I trust him to get the right expert going forward? How does it work?
So we are trying to keep all the referral inside of the ecosystem, meaning that if you feel strong about a player that you want to recommend to a client, we're trying to incentivize you to introduce us to that person so we can vet him and have him on the ecosystem. We really try to incentivize you pushing one of our clients to a third party that we cannot guarantee for. But obviously it takes a bit of time to play that game. But we welcome anybody that has a good reputation. Obviously, so far we need to stick with certain articles. We don't cover all yet, and I would love to tell you more about the roadmap that we have. But this is how we structure it for the moment.
So can you detail the user journey for us? How does someone interact with Semoto, and how can you help them? Maybe describe the process.
Absolutely. So being a software, the process is quite straightforward. Let's actually split it between clients and providers. As a provider, as mentioned, you can approach directly, but we will have to do quite a thorough check on you. Otherwise, people that are introduced by Matt, by our existing providers or clients, simply register on the platform. They can start the journey of creating their own profile, not too dissimilar from a LinkedIn profile. We incentivize them to put as much information as possible, from company brochure, videos, any information that can help the clients in make a decision. Once the profile is completed, my team vet the provider. If it meets all the criteria, profile goes live, it gets approved, and is visible not just for clients, but for other providers as well. And this is important because we are creating an ecosystem, meaning that is another provider that can find Matt. It can be a company, another law firm in Dubai that needs your expertise and is going to find you. It's not just going to be clients.
So how do you market then? Because when law firms try and do it, we talk about SEO, we talk about building content. We're doing our own marketing as a law firm and the legal industry generally. I'm sure the accountants are the same, and all the traditional guys, traditional service providers. How are you doing marketing? Is it something different? Is there a trick to it? And if there is, then definitely don't tell everybody. But
no, there is not a secret sauce. The reality is it's a mix of things. Again, marketplaces needs a lot of love and attention. So SEO is probably one of the most important things. We try to keep stuff like Google Ads to the minimum. But being in that world where we serve institutional service provider like accounting and insurance players, but on the other hand, we have a variety. Web2 company moving into Web3 or the DGen building their own project. We need to be smart and do marketing on both traditional way and more crypto native way.
Yeah, and I'm going to come to that point shortly because there is an important question around traditional versus is this an industry. But just to roll back, you've described the process by which someone like myself can be on your website, and I am, and I can share the link afterwards. But if you're someone who's looking for the solution, if you're going to be a customer, how do they access? Because as far as I'm aware, you have to have a login. You can't just see who's available openly. It's behind a wall. So how, if someone was trying to find expertise, how do they do it through Semoto?
You're right. There is a gated ecosystem. I'm not sure if it's going to stay like that forever, but our goal is to vet the clients as well. We want to have a bit of check on who these people are, because we want to protect our service provider as well. We don't want you to end up talking to time wasters, scammers, and things like that.
Yeah.
We did a few things on that front. So a client will need to register. There is no vetting per se, but we keep an eye on who they are. And then you access the platform where you have events coming up. You have report and research posted by our top providers. So you have a lot of material that can benefit you as well. And then you have the search engine. The search engine is the heart of what Semoto is. You can put in by category that you're looking for, and then sub-filter based on size, years in business, subcategory, etc., etc. Multiple offer comes out, and then is where you start your journey, where you can start a negotiation with multiple players in one platform, and that is what is going to save these clients a ton of time. I remember when I was selling a software before, one of the biggest pain points for a client was spending a good 3 months in deciding between me and my competitors. Multiple emails. I don't remember what did they offer. Via Semoto, everything is streamed in a single platform. You have all your offer there. You can negotiate. And from the provider point of view, we created this reverse RFP, a request for prices, meaning that before the client can approach Matt, he has to answer a certain number of questions that you pre-written, like what is your budget, what is the time frame for this project, so you can also filter out who do you want to talk to or not.
And just as an example of this, there has been some work that has come to me via an investigator from Semoto, right? So someone came in, said that they had lost a certain number of crypto assets. The investigator did their checks, ended up doing a report, and then they came to me via your solution. So the idea is certainly from my experience, that it's very circular and does allow people to not only come into the ecosystem, but almost, I was about to say being passed around. That doesn't sound good. What I mean is they can use all of the expertise within in a really tight way. So I personally have seen a benefit from being involved in Semoto, which is obviously a good thing.
I'm glad that you're saying that. And I think it's going to get better when we scale up, because it's going to solve that problem on steroids. Because the community in London, you know everyone. So obviously people can pass you business directly in a way. But the beauty of Semoto will be when a firm in Abu Dhabi or somebody else in France is going to look for your services.
Yeah, and I guess when it's international, it becomes a whole bigger pool. So, I mean, before we go to some of the more, I was about to say philosophical questions, may not be right. Let's hear a little bit about the roadmap of where you're going to be or looking to go in the next sort of few months and few years.
Absolutely. So there are a few things. We are aiming to expand geographically. So we already have a waiting list of some of the top players in France, Switzerland, and Dubai. Next is rest of Europe. Obviously, we follow the heat map of where blockchain is growing. So Baltics, Germany are quite interesting for us. Obviously, Singapore and Hong Kong. So we are already starting building the network. But we're going to do it gradually. Second, we're going to grow by vertical. We are going to add risk and security, structuring. We're going to add element of compliance. And
sorry, are these services that you're getting in to supply by yourself or as a third party looking?
Always third parties. Okay. Always third parties. So what I mean with vertical is we have a vertical with accounting firms. At the moment, we have 30 of the top accounting shops in Europe listed with us. So a new vertical is going to be risk monitoring, risk assessment, market risk, whatever. We can list a bunch of companies. So grow by verticals in a way where we follow what the client needs. Surprisingly, we are getting more and more requests for education, for recruiters. So whatever the client tells us that they want, we keep an eye open, we see who's up there, and we decide to implement the vertical. What is really going to make the difference for us, and this is the part that I'm personally most excited about for Semoto, is payments. One of the biggest issues of marketplaces is the disintermediation. If I meet Matt via the platform, nothing stops me to then negotiate with him and be out of Semoto. But I want to bring in more protection for both the provider and the clients. And the way that we are going to do that, we are going to embed via third-party providers. I'm going to repeat it to start via third-party providers. We are going to have payments, meaning that me as a client, I can pay in crypto, but my lawyer can receive fiat automatically. That is going to save a ton of headaches for a lot of institutional providers. And more importantly, we're looking for escrow capability in order to protect both you and your clients that the payment will take place, and financing. Because how many clients don't pay their providers or pay late? With a financing solution, you can leverage your crypto, you can leverage other assets, and the provider knows that it's going to get paid on time.
That sounds like quite a responsibility that you're going to take on. I mean, certainly I'm going to talk to you separately about how it works with law firms, because it's not always easy. But certainly with some of the less or non-regulated services, it may well be easier. But surely for you, that's a needless headache, because actually you're going above and beyond what you need to be doing. Yes, you'll be sort of the not you, but you'll be organising the payment between client and service provider. But won't that come with a lot of unnecessary headaches? All of a sudden you're in the game of organizing the movement of money.
So this is why we are starting with third party. Like already Semoto can process payment using an integration with Stripe. So we want to become a one-stop shop, even if I don't particularly like that definition, and make it easier in the client journey in finding and paying whoever they want. One of the biggest pain point is that payment element. A lot of clients have crypto, provider cannot accept it, or they don't want to liquidate those positions, so they need financing on that. Or simply, good statistic for you, apparently 20% of crypto projects don't pay or don't pay in time their providers. That's quite scary.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Probably because it's a statistic that has been studied during the last bear market. So unfortunately, a lot of projects were simply dying and disappearing. But an escrow capability, and there are plenty of good solutions out there, we're not reinventing the wheel here, will guarantee that you as a provider, you can see that assets do exist and will be released when the job is completed. So it all goes back to providing clarity and transparency.
Yeah, I think, look, if I was in a world where the legal world wasn't regulated as such, I think it would be a really nice way to ensure that there's an ability to get paid at the end as a service provider. We don't live in that world, and for good reason. So it's certainly something that needs some thought, but certainly from my end, and if you deal with lawyers, but if you can provide that security and confidence for both your customers and the service providers in your ecosphere, then I think it's a really, really sensible idea. If it can be done, I think it'd be brilliant. Pulling back less towards the vision and more towards the industry. One common thread in this industry, for me at least anyway, is change, or a sense, maybe rightly or wrongly, of fickleness, right? So for example, we had initial coin offerings and cryptocurrencies years ago, and we're still going through sort of murmurs of Web3 and NFTs and artwork, which is sort of to some extent died a bit. And then this year, everyone's talking about tokenization of real world assets and how important that is. However, it gets me thinking that whether actually there is a blockchain and digital assets industry at all, right? Because it may well be that we're just looking at old industries in a new way. So, for example, we saw sports industries use NFTs to have a conversation with and to engage their customers. Certainly, I remember football clubs were doing it. And I think the NBA were giving out NFTs, and then I know fashion labels like Prada create their own NFTs, right? And we have the Bitcoin ETFs in the US, traditional finance, taking on a new asset class. So my question to you is, isn't this whole thing just traditional industries capitalizing on new technology, or is it something quite different?
I think you are right, to be honest. I completely agree with this view. First of all, there is the element of blockchain per se. It will keep evolving. A few years ago, NFT were the hot topic. Now is real world asset tokenization. I'm sure then in 2 years' time is going to be something else. But one of the biggest issues is that there is not been identified by any of the startup a clear use case to bring in the masses, right? So in the meantime, is going to be the Web2 world adopting this piece of technology for something that is already in place, and you just need a twist to it. Traditional finance, using tokenization to bring in assets via a different sources, fractionalizing the investment in a traditional AMC certificate, what is it, 125, 200K, via fractionalization, you can bring in smaller investors. Real estates, new and creative way to place those properties. Sports, new ways to engage your customers. So I do agree with you. I mean, I think for the moment, the big push is going to be in Web2 adoption.
And I think that's probably it, right? It's like for people who cared about it years ago, it was a new industry. But actually, if we're going to get mass adoption in the way that we would like, then it's going to have to come from the more traditional players. So those trusted big brands are the ones that are going to bring this new tech. And I say no, but let's just this new tech to the masses. So does that affect you at all? Because you're trying to, well, Semoto is helping service providers provide key services to customers, right? So are you looking for advisors who have a specific blockchain background, or are you going, you know what, it doesn't matter because we need to be helping those in traditional finance and traditional industries be pulled over?
So that is a tricky question, because we are trying to stick with the true experts. I don't care if you work for a massive company that doesn't touch blockchain. If you truly are an expert and you have done things throughout your career to prove it, you are absolutely welcome in the Semoto environment. And you're right, there are plenty of companies that can smell the money and are reinventing themselves. But this is also what I'm trying to disincentivize. Yes. Why to go to the big four and spend a fortune when there are smaller advisors that are going to charge you less and are true experts? They've been in the blockchain space since day one, they understand it, and they can help you for a fraction of that price. So I really want to give visibility to the true expert. But blockchain is the tip of the iceberg for Semoto. Mm-hmm. The goal for us is to become a frontier technology marketplace. Blockchain is what we understand, is what we love, and is incredible because it's highly fragmented. Mm-hmm. There are so many different players that you need throughout your journey. But once that the system, the method is proved, I want to bring in artificial intelligence. I want to bring in big data, quantum computing, ESG. The model is replicable to multiple industries that suffer the same problem. If I am adopting the new technology, if I am building in that space, who should I talk to? Who can help me? Who's not going to take money from me and cause me problems?
And it's such a good point, because a lot of the time these businesses are set up by developers, right? So super brainy engineer computer guys. But actually, sometimes what these businesses need are business people, right? So you can have a really good idea, but then the way that the corporate structure is put together, or the direction of the business as a business, the way that that goes means that the tech is wasted, right? So I guess it's vital to have these emerging technology businesses been given the right advice outside of all the technological, developers and computer people to actually help them grow as a business, right? And I guess, does that put you ahead of the curve maybe, because you're noticing the difference between people who just say they do blockchain or crypto or whatever that is, and actually going, well, let's just slow down a bit. Let's have a sensible conversation with people who have been experts in one thing and have worked their way to be experts in this industry. I guess that's maybe why you might be ahead of the curve, or why you might be just something different.
I hope you're right. The reality is I have no clue where I am on that curve. What I can tell you, though, for sure, is that Semoto wouldn't have existed a few years ago. the industry has come a long way, has developed a lot, matured a lot. And what I mean with that is that the people, as you described them, the founders, are still the majority extremely techy guys. And they focus on the big idea, they focus on the project. That has not changed in the last years. What has changed is that before, if you are talking about compliance, if you are talking about MiCA, still haven't figured it out, but to those people 5 years ago, they would have told you,
been unheard of, right?
I don't care because I'm fully decentralized, or I'll face that problem at a later stage. Now, luckily, we are at a stage in that curve of evolution that these people know that they cannot avoid. And it's actually a good thing for them, because more transparency, more regulation, more structure overall. Yes, it means more headaches at the beginning on how to structure your business, but it means that you are more legit. You can bring in more investors' money because they can see that you are building in the right way. And so, yes, there is an element of headaches, but these people now are aware of what they need to do it and how it has to be done.
And I think that's a really nice way to end this, because it's about a transitional phase, and we are becoming, certainly as an industry, a little bit step by step more legitimate, and we've got more legitimate brands coming on side, and there is a sense of it's not just in the ether and we can't do anything. It's human beings and now faces that are dealing with regulation and are being held accountable for things where they wouldn't have been. So Marco, thank you very much. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks, Matt. Pleasure.
This podcast does not include any legal, financial, regulatory, or any professional advice whatsoever, and any comments made within should not be treated or construed as such. This podcast was co-produced by Matt Green and Luke Kemp.